Hey guys, it's Tiny Some Logan back with another video for you, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Asus Matrix Platinum GTX780 Ti. Now this is the basically the headline act as far as 780 Tis go with Asus. It's the EP card essentially, and for that Asus would like to remove £619 of your great British pounds away from your pocket for the privilege. So essentially today I'm here to try and work out whether this could be the card to basically spend, well, it depends on how much you earn, but an absolute eye-watering amount of money. And really, at the end of the day, is it worth it? Now, I know a lot of you are going to be going, how much? But to be fair, for a GTX 780 Ti, 599 to 649 is actually the bracket for the top flight cards. There are cards more expensive than this on the market, let's put it that way. But what we're going to do is we're now going to break off. We're going to have a look at the card up close, we're going to look at some slides, get it in the rig, and obviously right at the end we're going to have a nice big juicy conclusion. Okay then peeps, so we're going to have our first look at the card up close. Now, this does look very, very similar to the 290X version. And right at the very beginning, I'm going to tell you exactly what the differences are to the naked eye without ripping it apart. And you can do it on this side, pretty much. And that's obviously, we've got the tabs up here for SLI, and this was blanked off on the 290X, because obviously it does it through the PCI Express now. The other real difference is in the middle here, because you've got the two little cutouts and the two little indentations, and that's really it. Other than that, to the untrained eye, they look like the exact same card, which I don't think is particularly a bad thing, because it looks the absolute nuts. Now, something I did think was a little bit strange is the card narrows in around this first fan, but it's quite fat and chunky around the second one. It almost makes me feel like this fan could have been bigger. Now this fan is perfectly placed over the heatsink underneath. So I can understand why it is that size, because obviously the heatsink's just in a straight line. It's just visually, it makes you think that, there was a little bit more that they could have maybe done with it. But I like the fact that they've just gone with the red down the sides, and they've kept the kind of simple brushed aluminium look down through that little dash there, rather than putting red stripes on it and shit like they do with the normal DCU2s. If we turn it around this way, we can see that there is a huge brace up the side. Now another thing with this card is we've got this big brace, but we've also got, if you have a look, if I run my finger across there, that's kind of the normal kind of size of a graphics card. So we've got all this extra real estate up here, and it does make the card look, back a bit, does make the card look particularly hench. And I choose that word wisely as well, because it does just look much thicker and bulkier than a lot of other ones. But if we go back round here, we can see that we've got that lovely brushed alley backplate. But more importantly, because a lot of manufacturers seem to be getting it wrong recently, the Asus Matrix is the right way up. So when it's in your case, you can actually read it, rather than the fucking idiotic Gigabyte card where it was pointing around the other way so your CPU could read it. So that I like a lot. But then we come into the little nitty gritty kind of proper hardcore overclocking stuff. And a lot of that I'm going to show you with some slides in a minute, but I'm just going to point the things out. Here you've got an LN2 overclocking switch. If it's pointed up towards the PCI bracket up this end, that's standard. If it's towards the back of the card, then you've got it in LN2 mode. You've got the GPU hotwire stuff down here, so that you can actually solder in and hotwire your cards with extra volts and all that kind of stuff. There's two little tabs down here where you can actually short out two little points to either turn the memory heater on permanently or turn the enable the LN2 mode permanently. And then up here you can see that there's a Molex connector. One thing I will say is normal users or anyone not Sub-Zero, you do not need to plug that in. If you see anyone that is, then you can kindly point them out and tell them that all that's doing is making their memory hot, because there is a separate circuit in this card to do with this connector that basically is a memory defroster, and there is a switch here, and it's actually called the memory heater. It's to stop cold bugs, so you can turn that on, warm the memory back up, and then the card should work again. Whereas before with LN2, they'd be defrosting the pot and firing blowtorches down in and all kinds of really extreme stuff to try and get stuff thawed out. With this card, you don't, or Asus say you don't need it. Obviously, I've got no way of testing it. But in theory, at least, from what my limited knowledge of sub-zero overclocking, this could be an absolute, you know, like saves so much time for a lot of the hardcore boys. Also, just here, and I do mean just here, I will show you, but there's a little connector that you can solder in yourself, and it's for an external overvolt board. And that external overvolt board allows you to overvolt the card more than you can with any of the software, and it actually allows you to really crank the overclocks up. Now, you can't even buy that board, you have to get it from Asus, and I mean Asus directly. And the main reason for that is they don't want the average Joe having it, because they only want to give it to people that are going to be going sub-zero, because you can turn so many volts extra into your card that it quite literally will just go pop and magic blue smoke and all kinds of stuff for the average user. But if you're under sub-zero and you really are trying to, you know, absolutely rape every last bit that you can do at minus 150, then, you know, you could need that. The other thing is we've got the two 8-pin connectors up here, and I actually like to say that they're upside down, because generally the little tabs for them would be on the other side, but the heatsink is in the way, so they're turned the other way up. So that might perplex some of you when you start to do your cable tidying and stuff. But there is also two little LEDs up here as well. They are green if you've plugged your power connectors in properly, but if you don't plug your power connector in properly, they'll go red and they'll basically shout at you to say, "Oi, idiot, push the connector in properly." So just, you know, kind of keep that in mind. But anyway, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you the slides from the PDFs that Asus sent me, just so that I can show you some extra little info about all the little bits and bobs that I've shown you here today, so that you can actually see what I was going on about. Okay then, so quick look at the specs. Most important things there is 3 gig of video memory. That's just normal reference 780 Ti kind of limits. We've got a GPU base of 1006. We've got a GPU boost of 1072. And then we've got 7000 megahertz of the memory's running at 7000 megahertz GDR5, 4K digital max res, and then all the other gubbins underneath. So if we have a look at the next slide, I should say, we've got the gamer friendly style UI, which is the ROG color coded level indicator, which you'll see in a minute. They've been putting it on these for so long now, it's actually a little bit pointless. And I apologise right from the very beginning if I forget to say something, but I've already said pretty much the identical thing for the 290X already today, and my brain is mush. Anyway, so then we've got ROG Edition GPU tweak, which is brilliant because Afterburner really doesn't like these cards, and I think that's an intentional thing. Ultimate cooling, and it does work exceedingly well, as Mr. Kipling would say, on the 780 Ti. It's a little bit more disappointing on the 290, but on the 780 Ti, this cooler is the gonads. And then on the right hand side, and this is really the point about this card, is the ultimate overclocking. You've got the memory defroster, which I've shown you already, and it's nuts. Just remember that you don't need to plug that Molex power connector in, but unless you're, you know, doing sub-zero. But this is just to defrost your memory to get rid of cold bugs. And this, for a hardcore overclocker, is probably going to be amazing. And then we've got some more information about the black metallic capacitors and stuff, but we'll cover that in a minute. Next up, we get a good look at the an exploded version, or an exploded diagram of the card. So you get a good look at that black heatsink, and it is really nice as well. It's a shame that you can't really see more of it. Talks to you about the back plate. You can see the SLI tabs there, whereas you couldn't on the 290X, because it obviously doesn't need them anymore. Just to the right, the SLI tabs, you can see that LN2 switch, which they've not actually spoken about there. Then you've got the Digi-Black VRMs and stuff, which again we'll talk in a minute, and the MOSFET heatsink, the safe mode switch, and the memory defroster switch. Onto the 30% less power and noise and 5 times greater durability. This is just to really talk to you about the Japan-made Nikon GT series black metallic capacitors, and they're meant to be the dog's gonads. Essentially it's been made to be a super stable overclocking graphics card, and you know, from the ground up this thing's been made to be a sub-zero overclocking card, and Asus pretty much admit themselves that you're not going to get the most from it unless that's what you want to do with it. If you want to use this for air cooling and gaming and stuff, you obviously can do, but you're pretty much going to be buying it for the way it looks. Next thing is the at a glance GPU load level, but I have a funny feeling that unless you've got it in safe mode, the only time you're going to see any colour other than blue or red is when you're turning your games or your benchmarks on, because it just flicks through the other ones. And like I said, I've never really seen it, you know, consistently stay in any other colour. When you're on your desktop and watching films and stuff, it's blue. You turn any kind of game or benchmark on, it'll flick through orange and green and go straight to red. Okay then, so a quick look at the test rig, as we always do, and it certainly looks the part in this one. The black and red all kind of works really, really well together. I still stand by the fact that I think the white LED fans do help set things off, but it really needs some white LEDs in there if we were going to turn this into a show-off rig. But we've obviously got the Matrix 780 Ti, we've got an an AX860i, then we've got the H105 cooler, which has got the SP120 Quiet Edition fans on it with the red rings. Motherboard is an Asus Rampage Extreme 4, the old faithful. Then we've got the memory is Corsair Vengeance Pro. I've got 2 with the red bits on and 2 with the red bits off, just to kind of balance it out a little bit more. Individually red braided cables from Corsair as well. Then we've got the case is the 750D. There's a 240GB GTX Neutron in there, and which has got the benchmarks and the main OS on. And then we've got a Force LS 240GB, which has got all our games, Steam, and everything like that on, which just help keeps everything kind of nippy without having to have one massive single drive. I actually prefer having the 2 separate ones. So anyway, that's the test rig. Yes, it looks pretty, but obviously this is just to test the graphics card, and it's the same rig that we use for all the graphics card testing. Okay then, so we're just starting Unigine up quick. Keep an eye on the LED. It goes green very quickly, then orange, and into what's now red. Now you know what you're looking for. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start it again, and I obviously have to stop the benchmark and then restart it, but I'm just doing that quickly for you now, so keep listening to my boring voice. Now we're on the blue, and there you go, that's it. Pretty much everything makes that thing go red. I've not seen it anything other than red, apart from when it's changing. I've never actually seen it stay continuously on orange or anything else. So I would really like Asus to at least give us the manual ability to change that. I said that in the 290X review as well. I think, you know, there should be an option for us to be able to go, no, we want it always blue, or no, we want it always fucking green. But to be fair, just being able to turn it on red all the time would be fucking nice. Anyway, right, I'm going to shut up and we can move on. Okay then, so just a quick look at GPU tweak. Assuming that you've never seen this before, you can hit GPU info. That brings up your own Asus branded version of GPU-Z, although it is just the basic version of GPU-Z because you don't have the validation or the sensors attached to it. But with the sensor side of things, you do have it available down here in a bigger graph. Really, it's a bit more like kind of afterburner-esque. If you go into settings and then into tune, you've got all your options here that you can turn on and off. Oh, I didn't have 3.3 volt attached, but you've got all your options here that you can turn on and off depending on what you want to see down this side, and the options that you'll get in the tuning section. But if you give me 2 minutes, I've got something else to show you. Okay then peeps, admittedly this is a screenshot I took from when I was testing. This is how I store all of my results, so that if any of the manufacturers ever get arsy with me and try to argue the testing and all that kind of stuff, I've always got physical backups of every result that I've got. But anyway, this was when I was doing the temperature testing, but you can also see the overclocks on the on this side here. What we can basically see here is that the GPU clock is 1085 megahertz stock. Default clock, sorry, is 1006, and then you've got the GPU clock of 1085. It then boosts up to 1050 because I've manually set the boost to be 1050. But then the GPU boost too always takes things a little further. So we end up with a tip-top, you know, kind of a peak clock in the end of being almost 1230 megahertz. So it's 1.228.4 megahertz. The memory we got up from 1750 up to 1850, which is 7400 megahertz effective, which is obviously, you know, still a jolly huge clock really for GDDR5. But the most important thing here is if we see, look, the fan speed 52%, and at that 52%, that's on auto. It was very quiet. It wasn't silent, but considering we had overvolts and stuff through, because we did put a little bit more volts into it, we did put a little bit of extra memory volts into it as well. It behaved very, very well. But look, 76 degrees, and that was after 30 minutes of looping Unigine. Now, if that had been on a Nvidia reference cooler, you'd have been looking at about 80-85 degrees there, because it always, you know, kind of like GPU boosts up to that point. But on this card, this cooler works that well, it's just gone to 76 degrees. And to be fair, considering, you know, how quiet it was and the fact it keeps those temps down, this cooler on this card is an absolute masterstroke. Which, if you want to go and watch the 290X review, you'll also understand the massive differences between AMD and Nvidia. Because, like I said, same cooler, same card. The AMD one, the fan speeds went much, much higher. The RPM was higher, the percentage was higher. It's just, it has to work, that cooler has to work so much harder to keep the AMD to 91 degrees, whereas on an overclocked 780 Ti, we're only getting to 76. Anyways, right, I think it would be about time now for us to have a look at some benchmarks. Okay then, we'll start off with 3D Mark 11. And if you find the matrix, it's obviously the red one. If you look 3 above it, you'll see that the DCU2 with a manual overclock was actually scoring better than the matrix. This was actually the same story when we tested the 290X as well. So we don't know whether it's a 3D Mark 11 update that's caused this, or whether it's just, you know, I mean, maybe driver implementations. But this is basically it's been, both the AMD and the Nvidia card were slightly behind on 11. So we don't exactly know what's caused it, but I think the most important thing to see there is that the Gainwood Phantom is behind. But more interestingly than anything, really, for the Matrix, was the R9 290X is still in front. So it's Asus card for Asus card there. If we move on to 3D Mark, we've got Firestrike here, and they are sorted by Firestrike as well, although you can see the Firestrike Extreme results there. And the Matrix is right at the top, which is a hell of an achievement. But quite strangely again, if you have a look, the Gainwood Phantom overclock is actually marginally in front. There's not a huge amount in it, but it is still there. But then all of the other 780 Tis are behind. You've got the palette behind, the Asus DirectCu 2 behind, even the gigahertz edition is behind. So that's a pretty damn good score there. The fact it's really right near the top of that graph is unreal. Obviously we could have added SLI in, we could have added, you know, other results in, because our graphs are so damn huge now, we actually have to select what we want to put in there. But we think that's a pretty fair representation on how this stuff's performing. You can also see around midships, about halfway, is the 780 Ti DirectCu 2 overclock as well. So that just goes to show you how much further in front the Matrix is in the more strenuous Firestrike tests. Time for some gaming, time for some gaming. Right, so Battlefield 4. Now, we did get some funny results with Battlefield 4, especially when we were SLI in the Phantoms, which those are first and third on that graph. So we'll kind of ignore those and we'll just go with the Phantom overclock single card, and then you've got the 780 Ti matrix below. There's not a huge amount of difference there, and in 2560 by 1440, which is the white bar, you can actually see that the Asus is in front. So the Asus did better on the more strenuous test there, and it was within kind of a whiskers, almost kind of a benchmark tolerance difference in the 1920 by 1080 as well. So we'd probably, as far as, you know, all respective things go there, saying that the Asus was slightly better. Last but not least, with the benchmarks, we'll do Crysis 3. Don't forget, you can click the link to go and see all of the graphs in their entirety and all of the other benches that we do on the OC3D website. And you can go and see the other videos and stuff there. And you can also look up the other GPU reviews as well if you want to really, you know, pick things apart. Now, if you go fifth one down, 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, fifth one down, you've got the Matrix. Above it, you've got the Nvidia GTX780 Ti overclock, and then the Phantoms, really. The Phantoms, obviously you've got the SLI stuff there as well, but the Phantom, it did just seem to put out, once overclocked, some stupendous scores. We think we pretty much, not necessarily won the Silicon Lottery as far as overclocking is concerned, but we just found the sweet spot with that graphics card, and it was just yomping out scores. Anyway, so with the Matrix, you've got that one there. Just below it, you've got the Mars, and then more surprisingly, the Gigabyte is a fair bit behind it. Now, the Gigabyte Gigahertz edition is around the same sort of price, yet it doesn't have the kind of all the Sub-Zero stuff and everything. It just doesn't seem to perform as well as the Asus. But anyway, what we're going to do now is we're going to move on to a conclusion, and yes, we're going to move on to a conclusion, and we're going to get this little baby wrapped up. Right then, peeps. So, GTX 780 Ti Matrix Platinum. You want to know whether you should be buying it, really, don't you? So, what we're going to do is we're going to say the award, and actually the award is the same as the 290X, and that's the Performance Award. And we give it the Performance Award because this thing is already breaking records, and the 290X was as well. But when it came to kind of real world use, that, you know, most of the air-cooled people, we didn't particularly think that the 290X was a particularly good card. But this is a little bit of a different story, because this actually performs well on air as well. It's very cool, it's very quiet, and all that kind of stuff, you know, the kind of stuff that you would expect. Whereas the 290X was actually being beaten by other cards. This is pretty much, other than the Gainwood Phantom, which just was an obscene card and probably cherry-picked, this was actually pretty much near enough at the top of our graphs for every single one. There wasn't anything that it really fell down in other than 3D Mark 11. Now, you are going to be saying to me, Jesus Christ though, Tom, 619 quid is a lot of money. Yeah, maybe, but this outperformed the Gigabyte Gigahertz, which is the same price. It looks better than the Gigabyte Gigahertz. There's a shitload more engineering gone into it than that one. But more, you know, importantly than not, which is technically the point that Asus keeps shouting at us about, is the fact that this has been built from the ground up to be an awesome Sub-Zero card. This is like Asus's version of the Lightning. And, you know, it kind of shows with the 780 Ti. This is a much more I'd say this is worth the money much more than the 290X Matrix, let's put it that way. You do get mind-blowing performance. It stays cool, it stays calm, it's collected, it's quiet. And I'm talking about the testing that I've done on air. This is before that we start talking about the LN2 mode, the memory defroster, the hot wire that you can do. It really is a cracking card. And to be fair, this is generally with these cards, I don't personally like them. I've not had particularly nice things to say about the 290, to be honest. But out of the two, even though this is more expensive, this would be the one I would spend my own money on. Sure, if you're an air cooler, you are going to be spending a lot of that extra money on the fact that it looks better. but compared to the other 780 Tis in the same kind of price bracket, it's either up there with the best of them or beating them. And you know, 9 times out of 10, we're talking about the EVGA classifiers and the gigabyte, gigahertz and all that kind of stuff. This does outperform those cards. So with this one at least, Asus have got it absolutely dialed. But obviously, like I said, the most important thing is it's got it absolutely dialed, but we had like 76 degrees maximum temperatures. We had the fact that it still stayed cool, calm and collected. Essentially, this cooler was ideally suited to the 780 Ti. When they strapped it onto the 290X, because of all the extra heat and everything that GPU core produces, the cooler just couldn't match it, and it was having to spin the fans up more and all kinds of stuff. Now, you know, I don't want to make it kind of like a bashing against that one, but essentially, even though this is more money, if it came to me, you said to me, Tom, I don't know what to buy. Do I buy the 290X Platinum or the 780 Ti Platinum? Essentially, if you're not going to be mining, which I don't personally see the point of anyway, I would honestly be saying buy this card. And it's not because it's AMD or Nvidia, because we could be talking 780 versus 780 Ti for all I care. I would literally be telling you this because it's just such a better card. The fact that it's an all-rounder on air, which is what most of you are going to do, but if you're looking for a card to, you know, really start pushing the envelope with as well, then all the options are there. So this one out of the two that I've done is definitely my favourite, and it's definitely the one that I want to take to bed with me and kind of stroke and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, absolute cracker of a card. So that really is it, and I don't really want to go into too much about it other than that, because I know I'll start going around in circles because I've only just finished filming the 290X review. But yes, absolutely stonking card. I love it. If you do end up buying it, come and share your build logs with us on the OC3D forums, because I'd personally love to see them. I'd also like to know if anyone does buy one of these to put it sub-zero and straps a pot to this, then I'd also like to hear from you as well. Get on the Overclock 3D forums, because I'd love to hear your results. But for now at least, I'm going to grab my remote. This is Tiny Tom Logan with the Asus GTX780 Ti Matrix Platinum Performance Award winner.